What is up, guys? It's Verns back here again for another Supercoach video. This time it is just going to be going through some AFL defenders. We're going to go through some premiums, we're going to go through some mid-prices, and we're going to go through some rookies. So basically my favorite picks for each of those lines. This is probably a little series I'm going to do. We're going to do defenders, midfielders, probably forwards and rucks in a combination because it's just got a little bit less options in my opinion. But yeah, I'm going to do probably a few episodes of this, maybe 3 different, videos, spread them out, and then after that we will go into, team structures. I got probably 3 team structures I want to look at with you guys, and we can go through that. And as you will see, I actually set my green screen up. Now, obviously, you can sort of see the black box going around, but what matters is you can see behind me too, so I'm hopefully not blocking as much information as I usually am with that. So hopefully that works out quite nicely for everyone. Now, a little bit of housekeeping before we do jump into it. I just want to appreciate y'all for tuning into the video, especially those that like and subscribe for constant injections of AFL Supercoach content into their YouTube feed. With this as well, if you are interested in, being a bit more a part of the community, you can always add me on Twitter as well. I just go by Verns_SC, but you can also jump into the Discord for the Supercoach Hub. So if you have obviously been following me for a while, you know that I am doing the AFL pod on the Supercoach Hub. I've been helping out a lot with the Discord as well, trying to help out with team advice and whatnot, and the information that comes through there. Scobie, Joshy, all help out with that too. And finally, if you do jump into the Discord, we are doing a consensus team. So that does mean that I've basically put down all the players that I think are 2% or more owned, and you can go in there and you can actually just vote for them to be in the consensus team. And we're just going to make a consensus team for the Supercoach Hub and see how it travels throughout the year. I mean, each week I'll ask, obviously, the community if we're going to be trading or not, and if we are, then what our favorite trades would be. So yeah, jump in and be a part of that. I think that'll be good fun for everyone, and just jump in and get your vote in as well, guys. It doesn't matter if you aren't even voting for guys in your teams. I know when I sort of set it up, I just voted for the players that I think are good or like, and it's like, I put like 8 midfield premiums, that's like, I'd be happy with any of these guys, so I'm just going to put a vote to all of these guys, and whichever one wins, I'm honestly happy with. So get in there, put your vote in, and yeah, let's just make a nice fun team with everyone. Now, getting that out of the way, we're going to jump into some defenders to start. We've obviously just had all the pracky games happen. We have all the Supercoach scores for all of that as well, so I'm pretty keen to, go through that and my thoughts there. Now, there has been a lot of information that's really made it interesting. I think there's a lot of viable rookies and mid-prices that are so interesting, and yeah, I think there's a lot of guys that could be pushing for premium status as well this year, so it's really going to make it a lot of fun picking these teams. I think we'll have a lot of diversity coming through this, so I'm just going to put out my favorite picks, and once again, this isn't me making a team, this is me choosing like even 10 rookies maybe. I don't know how many rookies I'm going to actually choose, but just going through all the relevant rookies I think are applicable, the relevant premiums I think are applicable, and honestly, if you're choosing any one of those players, I'd probably be pretty happy with it. Doesn't mean they're necessarily in my team. We will go through that when I go through a team structure video a little bit later. But starting us off, so obviously we've got Nick Dacos here, 70% owned. You guys know that I don't have him in my team. Look, I am faltering a little bit in the sense that it's like, man, like my logic is if he goes 120, rookie gets a 60, he's only really worth 108 by round 6 and we get him in. I'm sure you guys know that. But with how good he looks, it does beg the question that, okay, what happens when he goes 130, 135? Then all of a sudden, it's going to be very hard to, first of all, get him with a bit of a price increase, but also it's going to be a lot of points that, even with that extra buy game, that it's going to be pretty damaging. So he has made me falter a little bit, but I'm going to stick strong with it here and not start Nick Dacos, because, you can't make a video saying if you start these picks, you won't win Supercoach, and then go ahead and pick them in your next video. That doesn't make any sense. So we will not be picking Dacos. Sicily had a bit of a down game here. I don't know if this is just playing against the Bulldogs. Obviously, they have Norden, Ugelhagen, and Lob, and it meant that Sicily as the third tall. Usually he can play an intercepting role, but he had to play more accountable because he couldn't afford to just leave Lob open. So because of that, he got stuck being more accountable. Obviously, Hawthorn are trying to play towards Sicily being able to play that intercept role because they know how good he is at it. But they also have Carl Amon now and D'Ambrosio, who is also getting back and doing a lot of distributing from the half back. And that could be eating into some of Sicily's scoring. And even if it's a 5-point decrease from last season, why would we pay, for a player valued at 114 if he's only going to average 109, 108? So I still think Sicily will be good. I still think he'll probably be a top 6 premium at the end of the day. But I do think there could be, honestly, like 10 players that aren't that far apart in scoring when it comes to, that sort of 5 to 10 range in defender premiums. So I do think you can probably definitely get away with not starting Sicily. So I'm not going to be putting him in here either. So yeah, I mean, we've gone past the two number 1 and number 2 defenders when it comes to price. Number 3, Tom Stewart. I know Tom Stewart had a bit of a down game, Supercoach wise, but he was in cruise control. He only played I think 60% of the game, ended up with a 73, so it wasn't really that he had a down game. It might just look that on the stat sheet side of things, because you see the 73 and you go, oh, it looks like Stewart, why was he down? It's like, no, he only played 60-65% game time, and he's in pretty cruise control for a lot of that. So I do like Stewart still. I do think, once again, he'll be top 6. He's a bit cheaper than the other boys, and once again, his true average is much closer to 118. And if you don't know what I mean by that, what I mean is Tom Stewart in game 1 last year got knocked out on an 18. You take that 18 out of his score, in reality, his average would have been 118. So he's actually 5 points underpriced for what he could have, should have done last season, and what I think is good enough to do again. I think the biggest thing to take into consideration here, guys, as well, is it's not just about, I guess, their average. We think Tom Stewart could average a 115. We think Sicily could average a 108. Maybe we think, let's say we think Sheasel could get up to a 110, and we think Sicily's a 108 guy. I think the big difference there is Sicily is a VC risk, and that's something that you don't calculate into the averages. What I mean by that is you can put the VC on Sicily. If he drops a 170 for you, and you take that, that's bonus points that you're not counting into the average. So you might have gone for a Bonsi to be safe if the Sicily VC failed. Or if you didn't have Sicily, you just think Bont's the best option to go for. Bont gets you a 130. Yeah, not bad. But if you went the Sicily VC, you actually got a 177, and then you end up, 47 extra points there, and that's not calculated into his average at the end of the day. The additional points you can get off him being a VC threat. So that is the other thing you got to count into factor when you factor in Sicily and Stewart, is that they're VC threats, and they can earn you an extra 40 points a week from getting a great VC score, and you need to take that into account when you're looking at their average. So that's something else I just wanted to get out there for you guys to be aware of. And if you haven't played before, what I mean by a VC loop, it's just more or less, you can put the VC on someone. If the VC performs very well, you can then put the C on a non-playing player or a buy player, and it takes the VC score. If that VC player ends up with a poor score, let's say Sicily ends up popping out an 80, you don't really want to take that score, then you can just put the captaincy on another player like a Bontempelli, Liberatore, Butters, and have a second crack at the captaincy option. So you more or less get 2 cracks at getting double points in that strategy. So VC looping is extremely important. It's not something we do in NBL. I don't believe it's something that's done in NRL, but it's something that's done in BBL and AFL, and that's just more or less how you do it. I'll show you how to do it throughout the year as we go on, so make sure you tune into these videos. But that's something that you also need to take into factor when you're looking at these highly versatile players that can push out these 180-like scores, is that the VC loop could be an extra 40 points in 1 week, could be an extra 40 points maybe 3 times in the year. You add an extra 120 points to their total score, and all of a sudden it bumps that average up quite handsomely. It might add an extra 5 points to that average, and even though you're considering Sicily maybe a 108 average, you add 3 good VC scores there, maybe he's a 113 average, and maybe you're paying a fair price for him. And I think that's definitely something people forget about to consider when they're looking at these players. In my opinion, I think Stewart and Sicily are in the same boat. I think they're both VC loops, so I'm going to put Stewart there over Sicily if we're taking one of the two. Now, Luke Ryan was really good in the game this week. It didn't look like he was really having a problem with his kicking for what I saw. It looks like he was still kicking the ball quite long, and honestly looked like he could be a pretty viable pick. I think the only thing with Luke Ryan you need to take into account, yes, he has the good buy, but he has a 109.5, and that's really inflated from last year's start of the season games. Now, what I mean by that is Freo played a disgusting style at the start of the season, and you'll see it with that 171 in game 1 that he got, 122, 105. I mean, these aren't crazy scores in reality from Luke Ryan. He actually goes a bit more bananas later on in the year. I think Cox definitely was getting more crazy scores from this. But they were playing chip to chip in the back line, and it did feel like maybe that inflated some of that, some of these Freo defenders scoring. Saying that, as I said, Ryan doesn't actually look that crazy. I mean, I guess so. Technically 93 is his lowest score. Yeah, he was averaging 120 up until round 7. I mean, even up to round 8. So, yeah, no, he was definitely inflated. So they were playing chip to chip in the back line and losing games, and they had to change their game style basically partway through the season, because they're like, okay, we can't play this chip to chip game style because we're losing games. We got to be more attacking with the footy. And then when they start playing more attacking footy and they're not chipping it around, all of a sudden, as you see, Luke Ryan's scores just start diving, and it just wasn't ideal. So that's the thing that you need to take into account with Luke Ryan is, yes, he has a 109 average, but it's very inflated from that 120 first 7 rounds. And yeah, look, he was definitely better when Young was pushed into the midfield and playing more of a loose defender behind the ball after he did his centre bounce attendances. So I don't mind Luke Ryan, and I think if you want to go for it, there's no problem there. He does have the goodbye too, but I do think there's maybe more value in the defence line. Now, Sinclair we're going to ignore because of the injury that's happened to him. Houston, I think, is a golden pick. I mean, he unfortunately kind of... not unfortunately, but he made himself very known to everyone. I feel like he was only 4% flying under the radar. I feel like, to be fair, the content creator community, we were all pretty hyped for Houston, especially with that Port Adelaide first 6 home games out of 8 rounds to start the season. Port Adelaide just seemed like absolutely amazing picks to start on. But yeah, he had a good game in the practice game, and I think a lot of people jumped on when they were a bit more unsure of the Sicily role. They weren't too sure what was going on there, and they sort of, I think, pivoted down to Houston. Some pivoted to Dacos, but yeah, Sicily's ownership definitely dived. But yeah, up to 9% ownership. I think he's going to be a really good pick. Probably at worst case scenario, you're paying for what you're getting, but you're getting the best buy round. And the thing is, something that you need to take into account too, is the players don't come in and obviously just average 106 all year. He has 6 games at Adelaide Oval to start the season. I wouldn't be surprised if this man comes out and averages like a 120 in the first 8 rounds. Everyone tries to get on him, and then he averages like a 100 to a 105 on the back end of the year, and then that dives his average all the way down to like a 108. And you look at it and you go, yeah, 108 was good, but I did feel like he maybe was better. And that's because if you started with him, he was much better than finishing. You know, that's something you need to take into account. When do these players have good runs? And Houston's start of the season is amazing, and I do think if you're going to get Houston, you probably need to start him. You can't really jump on him after round 8. I think people will get sucked in by round 8 when they're making upgrades. Like, man, Houston's looking so good, let's get on him. And that's when, obviously, Port Adelaide's run stops being super good and ends up being a little bit more away games than home games on the back end of the stretch. So definitely something that I think that you should be starting with if you're going to be ever looking at Houston throughout the season, as I think his average will be much better at the start of the season than probably later. So yeah, love Houston as a pick. Nick Newman, yeah, he was solid. He was okay. I mean, not my favorite pick. I wouldn't push you away from it though. But it's just not what I really like. Sheasel, another great pick. Look, yesterday's game was really interesting. First game, Fisher was really bad. Second game, Fisher was really good. But Sheasel is still going to be a leader in that defense line, taking the ball out. Even if you got a 102 from him, you wouldn't be disappointed with that because we know he can put out 130 games to really spike that up. So I think he's going to have a nice high floor. You're not going to get too many low games from him, but then he also has the potential of these higher 130-ish games. So I really like Sheasel as a pick. Also, I think has a pretty good buy round. Just because he got the round 12 bye round with only 3 other teams, so 4 teams in total have that bye, and honestly, you're not going to start any of these like Lions players, or there's a good chance you're not going to start a lot of those players with the round 12 bye that aren't North players because they have 2 byes very quickly. So I think Sheasel's very good. Short was pretty decent in his game. I can see him really sucking a few people in. Not the pick I'm going to go for. I like Sheasel over him, but I think he's definitely a viable option. Look, I'm not making my team here. What am I saying? So I got a little bit distracted looking at players that I was very interested in, but I think these are all very viable premiums. I think I'll be happy with any one of those 5. I think if we slide down a bit, yeah, Wilkie had a good game, but I don't think I'd be picking him. Young had a good bounce back game, so I think you definitely look at him. Good buy, playing midfield. Will Pell also had a really good game, sort of doing what we thought Buderick would do off the halfback. but he is already at that premium price, so I don't think we need to start with him. Maybe someone you look at later on if he becomes viable. And I think they're mainly the premiums that we're going to be looking at. Nas was also really good, someone that I think could be considered as a smoky, and a bit of a cheaper pick too. If you don't really have enough to get up to any of these guys and you have that money in the back line, I think Nas is pretty cool, but at the same time, St Kilda have a really good back end of the year run. So if he is someone that's doing pretty well, you could jump on him towards the back end of the year and probably get an even better run to finish off the year. McGovern just never healthy enough. And then I think the last one we're going to end with, so Himmelberg I thought wasn't bad, but not really my pick. Oh my goodness, I've gone past him. Where is he? Whitfield, there we go. Well, I think Whitfield was also really good, so I think these would be 8 premiums I would consider. I'd be pretty happy with any of those in your side, and I think they're pretty good starting picks. As you'll notice, none of them actually have the buy. Oh, I guess Whitfield has the buy, so maybe you could cut him from the list if you really need. I thought he was good, but yeah, I forgot. Obviously, they have the buy too, so look, I'd be pretty happy with any of these 7 in your team. I think these are good premiums to sort of look at. As I sort of mentioned, there's sort of the top 3, the 3 that are my favorite. And then Young was pretty good too. So I plan on probably having a 4 premium defense, looking at those guys. But yeah, sorry, we weren't meant to be going through my team here. We're going to be looking at some mid-prices now. So let's just quickly get these guys out of here. Now I'm going to put the relevant mid-prices in, and then we'll talk about them, I guess. 1 second. Oh my god, that was disgusting. I'm so sorry, guys. I don't think Himmelberg is relevant. I think Yo, just because of the ownership being high enough, is relevant. I wouldn't be picking Baker. It didn't look like he quite had the role. I guess most people are probably picking him in the forward line, so I guess not really relevant again. Hunt wasn't the worst from defense, but I don't think what we want. Salem I'm going to throw in there because of his performance. We have a few more. Obviously, we're throwing Kitty Coleman. I think there's only really one more we're looking at here. I know some people are interested in Weddle, but didn't even play in the practice game, so I'm going to cross him off the list because of that. Okay, where are you, last guy we're looking for is Buderick, obviously. I know some people are pretty impressed with Markov's game, but not someone I'm going to put in this list. So I guess these are the 4 relevant mid-prices we may be looking at. Now, personally, I would not touch Yo with a 10-foot pole because we don't go to those injury-prone players. Yes, he's got a really good role, and maybe he could be a top 10 defender, but at the end of the day, we have pretty good defenders, and he needs to make 100k. If he's making 100k, he's going to be a keeper, but if he's... I mean, he could be a direct sideways, but his body's just not up for it. I don't know. I wouldn't trust Yo. Would not trust Yo as far as I could throw him. So I'm personally going to remove Yo from that list. I just put him there because he's got a bit of ownership, but definitely not a pick for me. Christian Salem, I thought looked really good, and I was really impressed with his game. Could be a little bit of a watch this week. Obviously, the good thing about all 3 mid-prices we chose here, they're all open round players, so we'll get one more look at them. So definitely take a look at them. See what they score. Just because they go ballistic doesn't mean they need to be in your team, because at the end of the day, those points won't count towards your total score. You need to see why they went ballistic. Did they have a great role, or did they just happen to get some lucky possessions, right place, right time, maybe kicked 4 goals, something that's unsustainable and very unrealistic to, you know, their game. But I really liked Salem. I thought he was really good for them. Yeah, his Supercoach score wasn't crazy. Doesn't really need to be crazy, but he is just a little too expensive. If we chopped, I think, 50 to 70k off his price, I think I'd be all over this pick. But just a little bit too expensive at 420k. So yeah, Salem thought was really good. If you go there, I'm not unhappy with it, but I think he's just a little bit too expensive. And I think the big problem is Oliver. When Oliver returns, it's going to cut into Salem's CBAs, and then he's going to have that floor return, and he has a really low floor. He can have some really bad games. He's really notorious for dropping 60s, I feel. And he's also pretty injury prone as well. So, look, not someone I'm going to pick. If you did do it, no, I'm going to say I'm against it at the end of the day. I think it falls in the same category as Yo, where he's pretty injury prone at the end of the day as well. He's pretty expensive, and if he's earning money, he's basically getting to a premium price before you get rid of him. I think he's definitely one that we can all watch and consider, but I don't think we should be starting him. And these are the two more likely starting mid-prices that we'll be looking at. Kitty Coleman, I didn't think that was that impressive. I heard others say they thought he was impressive. I mean, look, first quarter, 10 touches. That's elite. That's so good. Second quarter, 3, and then second half, 6 more. So he ended up with 19 touches. That doesn't sound as good as 10 touches in the first quarter, finishing on 19. I don't know, he got really quiet and sort of disappeared after that first quarter. He also kicked a goal, which, hey, he might do that because he's pushing up. So that might be a pretty regular thing where he manages to kick a goal, sort of like a Daniel Rich or a Redmond, where they add that little bit of offense from pushing up. But even with that, he had like an 89 Supercoach. I definitely wasn't all over this pick. I mean, he's 71 average, so he needs to be pushing a 91 basically to make enough money. And if he's making that much money, once again, he's probably pushing towards keeper territory, which isn't a bad thing. Obviously, we'd be very happy to end up with a keeper for this kind of price. But I don't know. I wasn't that personally impressed with his game. So, and we still got McKenna to come back, and I think McKenna comes back and eats into a bit of his scoring. He's a no from me right now, but obviously on the watch list for this week, and could be very important in that game. So, we'll see what happens there. Not for me personally. Now, Buderick. Yeah, look, I'm just going to state it. I'm not really picking any mid-prices in the defense. This ain't a pick for me either. I thought Buderick was going to be really good. He looked fine last week, and then this week he sort of ended up in a bit more of a lockdown role, which sucked. I think Weller ended up back in the team. Sorry, Powell ended up back in the team and doing a lot more of the distributing that Buderick was doing previously. So I felt like Powell being in the team ate into Buderick scoring, and he ended up playing a bit more accountable. And even if he ends up with this Jaden Short role 50% of the time and playing accountable the rest, that's, once again, it's not ideal. The only thing I guess here is, once again, his price. Sorry, obviously he's 77, but he's got a discount on him for being so injured all the time. Where are you? Yeah, so he's much closer to... Okay, they're also discounted players. So he's much closer to the 53 is what he'd roughly be on. So he's about a 53 price. He just needs to get 73, which isn't that hard in reality, but I don't know. I wasn't impressed with this game. Once again, he's going to be a big watch this space for this week as well. They did versus the Giants, which are a downhill skiing team, and just absolutely ruffle-stomped them, completely ran over the top of them. The problem is, how often is that going to happen to Gold Coast? Is it also one of those things where when they get a bit more used to Hardwick's coaching, it's going to change, and they might be a little bit better as the season goes on? Maybe. But I think I'm just going to jump off this pick right now. So, yeah, I've got no mid-prices personally, but I think those are the 4 you've got to consider. As I mentioned, 3 of them are really a watch this week, and personally I wouldn't touch Yo, but I know people are considering him. Now we'll jump down to what are the defender rookies. Defender rookies, really, I'm looking at 250k less is for I would consider the rookies. And we're going to throw in D'Ambrosio there and Williams to start. So D'Ambrosio sort of played the wing but rotated into defense off the wing and then got a bit of the chip mark and distribution from the half back, and I thought was really nice. He's also priced at 40, so he just needs to average 60 to make his money. And look, he looked like he can easily do that. He's also someone that's had a bit of problems with his body though, so something to take into account, but a lot less risk on this man when you're that kind of price. You can easily just be flipped down to a rookie in a worst case scenario. So I think he is an absolute steal. So I'm all over him as a pick and really keen to start him. Zach Williams, probably the similar thing to D'Ambrosio. He's going to be a distributor from halfback. He's this cheap price where he just needs to average like 60. Probably very easy for him to do if he can get on the park. The question is he even going to play? Round 1, don't know if he's going to be up for that. Round 0, don't know if he's going to be up for that. If he ends up playing round 0 and looking phenomenal, he's going to be in everyone's team. The question is, does he get up for that? I'm just not too sure. Once again, he's also very injury prone, but he's at such a low price that the risk is very minimized by that low price. So I'm very happy to start him if he comes out guns blazing in round 0. If he doesn't play round 0 but gets named for round 1, I'm not too sure what I'll do. I might just skip him at that case because I really want him to get some runs into the legs and make sure he's fine, before I have to actually commit to him. So they're the first 2 rookies that we'd be looking at in defense. The next one, Jace Burgoyne, I thought he was really good too. Also another distributor from halfback. Not a crazy good score. I think he got like a 67, but he did have quite low game time to get that 67. Once again, he's priced at only like 40-ish, a bit less. So getting a 60 plus, like that's all he needs to do. If he can do that consistently, he'll make us money. And I think the big difference with him and some of these other rookies we're looking at is I think he has a much higher ceiling. Yeah, his floor might be like all other rookies where sometimes they just don't get involved in the game and they drop these 50s to 40s, but I think he has a much higher ceiling, and I personally think he's going to have a higher floor because he's just got a better role than some of these key defenders. So I'm really happy with what he did, someone I'm very interested in, if he can actually get named and play. Then we'll be jumping down to, I guess, Josh Gibkiss. I'm probably going to name all these three together. Let's put them all together real quick. I mean, Gibkiss and Zach Reed, they're both key defenders, but with excellent job security. One thing you can probably bank on is these guys are going to play unless they get injured. Now, obviously, Gibkiss missed out on all last season from an injury, but we saw it even in this practice game with Reed. Sometimes these key defenders, they can have these spike games. He dropped an 80 for Supercoach. He looked really, really good. And hey, even if they come out averaging not the greatest, they're pretty cheap. As I said, 60 plus, and they're going to definitely make us their money. If they even average around that 50, 55, it's not great, and they're going to be a real slow burn, but then if they can spike in like an 80 game, like Reed did this week, then they can hopefully push up to make sure they get towards that 150k for us, and maybe do that faster than what we're hoping for. So I think they're good, solid picks if you just want a bit of security in your back line. As I said, they're going to be a bit more slow burn, not as high on the ceilings, but they're definitely going to be in the best 22, and you're going to feel pretty comfortable about that. And then I think the last, I guess, two, Toby Pink played. Once again, maybe he's probably, and Caulfield, they're probably fall into that category as well, where they're best 22. Probably. Wait, where is Buku Kamas? Is he a forward? I don't know how to spell Kamas. Yo, is he a forward? Oh, he's a forward. Lol. Crazy. Sorry. Just wanted to check that out. So, I mean, once again, Pink, Caulfield. Pink also another lockdown defender, so once again, he falls into the same category as these other guys, but job security isn't as good as Reed and Gibkiss, so a little bit more speculative, and I think his scoring isn't going to be as good as theirs either. Caulfield, I think, can match them in scoring. Job security also, though, I don't think as good as Reed and Gibkiss, though, so I think he might actually have a bit of a higher ceiling than them, because it looks like he may play a little bit more intercepting than these other lockdown defenders, but unfortunately, where does he fit into this team? Kamas was kind of better than him on the weekend, so maybe Kamas pushes him out. He's going to be around that 22, 23 player in the team, and he might be in 1 week, might be out the next week. It's very hard to pick Caulfield, I think, because I think that job security is a little bit shaky, unfortunately. And then we're going to finish it off with Ethan Phillips, who I think did really well. Once again, he's a 102k rookie, so his floor is even lower. I think he's technically priced at like 30, so if he can get like a 50, he's going to make 150k for us. And he looked pretty good. Like, he looked like he's going to be playing in that team. He's a bit more of a mature body than Sarong is, so I think he's got that job security a bit better. And he looked quite good. He got a few good intercept marks. Yeah, he got beaten a few times as well, but as I mentioned, Dogs are a hard team. These are good key forwards. But I thought he did pretty well, and I'd be pretty surprised if he doesn't line up in round 1. So yeah, I think if you're looking at rookies, these are probably the 8 rookies you will look at. As I sort of mentioned, we have some higher scoring ceilings, but injury risk, some maybe lower ceilings, but some job security. Yeah, so that's the things you got to weigh up here. And I guess the good thing with Phillips is he's so damn cheap, is it helps facilitate the rest of the team. Personally, I think Phillips and Reed should almost be on the bench for you, and these cheap players help facilitate money elsewhere on the field. So that's going to be my wrap on defenders. They're my rookies, midfielders, and premiums that I like. And as I said, if you're having a mix of any of those players in your defense line, I'd be pretty happy with that. But anyway, I'm going to end this video here. Then we're going to jump on and do the mid-prices. I'm probably going to put them out. I'm going to probably put out the defender video as soon as I finish these. And then I'll get the mid-pricer one out probably. I'll schedule it for midnight. Forward one, midnight the night afterwards. And then probably the team structure one the night before open round. So I think that'd be Wednesday midnight. to hopefully get those, a little bit of, I guess, continuity to my videos, get them out a little bit. This is what I talked about when I talked in my last video. I didn't want to be putting too many videos out at once. Too many videos out before we got information. Now that we've had these informations, we've seen players with our eyes, we have this eye test, I feel a lot more comfortable picking and looking at these players and creating teams off it, and stating players that I think are good. So yeah, I'm going to smash out videos now before open round. Some of these might bite me in the butt because open round spins around and there's some players that you just sort of have to pick, but I'm pretty keen to take that on. But yeah, once again, everyone, thank you so much for watching the video, liking, subscribing, for your consistent injections of Supercoach content, and also for those that come in and join the Supercoach Hub's Discord. I'll put it in the description below, as well as my Twitter. Follow me, join the Discord, have your say in our consensus team. Going to be a lot of fun there, guys. But yeah, till next time, peace, later.